Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Never Quit Nation podcast. This is episode 8, and I am honored to have a special guest here, Mike Logan. Goes by Gormy on Instagram. Is it Gormy Goes Keto, correct?
Yeah, because my name is actually, it's funny. My name's actually Mike Gorman,
Yeah.
but Mike Logan is my Gmail address. So my coach, who knows my full name, mistyped it the first time he put it on the podcast where everyone's getting Mike Logan from now.
Okay.
And he's like, yeah, we'll just leave it that way. I'm like, okay. But now I'm getting people all the time that are like, are you related to this person? Are you related? I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not really. I'm like,
Wow.
Gormy comes from somewhere. It does. It's not just made up. So it's just it.
I
keep laughing. I keep laughing. So
well, Mike, listen, you are a huge inspiration. You've been on a couple podcasts, so folks that are watching this might already know about you, but there's plenty that don't, many that don't. And I found you through Instagram. I found you through a transformation hashtag. I just was doing my own Transformation Tuesday type deal, and I saw your photo, and I said, wow.
Awesome.
I clicked on your profile, and it was so engaging, and your story was just so unbelievable. That's why I had reached out to you. I'm super glad to have you in this aspect of my life and being able to talk to you about this stuff.
Definitely.
I just first off want to say I have a ton of respect for you and what you've done so far, and I'd love for you to just tell me about your journey. As a person that went from was it like 500 pounds?
Yeah, 540 was my heaviest. 540.
540. So,
yeah.
What was it like being 540?
So much you can say about it is cliche. Like I think the first thing that always pops into my head is that I was existing. I wasn't living. Like at that size, like there's so many things that you just can't do. So you just get used to not doing them. Like I was saying to someone the other day that like as I grew bigger, my world grew smaller. And whether that was, making up excuses to not go out with people or starting to do all of my shopping online, choosing to not go to places where I didn't know if there would be seating that could hold me or if I could fit in the seating. So there were movie theaters I stopped going to. There's like I'm here in Providence, Rhode Island, and there's a movie theater 2 minutes from my house, and I didn't go to it for probably 8 or 9 years because I couldn't fit in the seats at all. So everyday things become challenges, and so you start giving them up. And I gave up a lot, and I gave up a lot just to keep feeding that massive food addiction that I had going. That was obviously raging out of control. I was always big my whole life, but I topped 500 pounds in the early 2000s. And I was well over 500 pounds for 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
And the thing that I always find funny is like the very first time I lost weight from that point, it wasn't even intentional. It was, I was out of work. And when you don't have money, you go on a poverty diet automatically. Yep. And it's funny because you see people say, big people say all the time, I don't eat that much. You just believe how little I eat. And for me, I will say, and I can only speak for me, I was eating a lot. I was eating a lot of food. And so that once that started to go away, the size, started to change. So, but it was definitely like all consuming in my life for a long time.
What do you think? Because you had mentioned a food addiction.
Yep.
How do you think that started? I mean, what do you think got you addicted to food? Do you think it was just the way you felt eating, or do you think it had something to do with within the food, something that was in the food, or was it both?
I think it's both. I think because there was a foundation laid by the food that my family was feeding me as a kid, because I was a really, really big kid. But by the time I was 10 years old, I was over 200 pounds. And we were eating, we were not wealthy by any means. So we were eating a lot of like macaroni and cheese and spaghetti and, white bread and grilled cheese and things that, and cheap meat and things that were easy to make, but also relatively cheap. And I think that kind of laid the foundation I honestly think that there's some kind of, epigenetic effect. Like when you grow up eating that food, like that's what your body becomes used to and
Mm-hmm.
craves. And so I think that foundation was laid by those foods. And then I think when I was 10, I was put on my first diet by my family. And I think that started creating some behaviors like sneak eating and shame around eating and things along those lines. And so, but for me, instead of, I've talked to a lot of people who like the shame around their eating becomes something that is almost paralyzing to them. And to me, it was almost like I inverted that shame and turned eating into a thrill. Like,
Really?
eating became a high. And like when I could get, the massive amounts of food, even as a kid, like it was exciting to me and it was thrilling. And, it kind of kept driving me. And there was this, it just became this like reinforced cycle of over and over again. And, that there would be points where I would know that my weight was getting so high that like my family was going to freak out. Like when I was 16 and I was almost 350, they freaked out again. And it wasn't until I was really on my own that like the floodgates could really open and I could just have that access. And you start to realize it's amazing. Like I think people, when you get out on your own, like whether it's in college or after college, you start thinking about all the freedom that you have. And that people go wild and they go out a lot and like things along those lines. And to me, it was the food that went wild. It was being able to buy whatever I wanted to buy and keep whatever I wanted on hand. And that thrill never went away. Like it never went away. And it was something that just became more and more kind of, like I said, reinforced. And there was a part of me that just really kind of gave over to that life and gave over to being the big guy and defined my identity as being the big guy in whatever social circle I was in, and embraced it wholeheartedly to the point that, it was something I felt like I was known for, and I didn't mind being known for it. I don't think I wasn't one of those people. Like when I was a kid, I was one of those people that wore like a t-shirt in a pool or, was very reticent to change at gym and all of those things. But when I came out of all of that, I think a stronger person, I became completely not ashamed of my size or anything along those lines. So if I was at the beach or at a pool or anywhere, it was bathing suit time and I was getting sun. Like it didn't matter to me. Like, and I don't think, I'm not saying that was bad, that I didn't have shame about my body, but I think it just contributed to what was there because it never became something where I was like, oh, maybe I should change this. It became something like, well, this is just who I am.
Right.
If that makes any sense. Yeah.
No, yeah, it makes sense. And just hearing that, it really is, it's wild. I mean,
oh yeah.
But hearing all of that, because I'm looking at you and I'm listening to you talk to me, and I'm, part of me is saying that guy's not here anymore, So now you've completely changed your whole life.
Oh yeah.
You've lost how much weight in total?
Well, from my heaviest, I'm now down 286 pounds.
That is, congratulations, man.
Thank you. Insane. And from my most recent high, I'm down 216. So
unbelievable. And
it is.
Is it keto that did this?
For this now, for this, I've been keto a little over 2 years, like 2 years and a week, or 2 years and 2 weeks at this point. Yeah.
So I'm on keto as well, which is another reason why I follow you, because I learned a lot from you on it. I've only been on keto. Today's day 46 for me.
Oh, nice.
So I'm newbie. And I got the information. I did some research on keto a couple of years ago. I followed a girl by the name of Stephanie on YouTube, Keto Stephanie or something she calls herself. I wasn't mentally ready to do it. Yeah. And so I just didn't. And then my brother's been on it for about a year, and he lost a lot of weight. He looks like Leonidas now from the 300. And so I wanted to go on it, and watching you now and seeing what keto's done for you, and then learning from you, because I learned a lot from just what you post.
Thank you.
It's tremendous. So would you mind talking about your keto experience? And
sure.
Just, how'd you get involved in it? What was it like in the beginning? And just, go into the details of that, because there's so many people out there that are getting information on keto that is either good or bad. Oh, yeah. And I know we're not doctors, but certainly you can explain what worked well for you.
Definitely. So for me, I tried every diet in my life, and the ones that always worked were the ones that lowered the carbs. I was a big fan of something. I don't know if you ever heard of the carb addicts diet. It was a book. There was these two doctors, and the idea was that you ate two very low carb meals, and then you had one meal that they called the reward meal. And the reward meal started with a salad, 2 cups of salad, and then you had a plate that you divided in 3, and you had 1/3 protein, 1/3 low carb vegetables, and then 1/3 whatever the heck you wanted to eat. So it could be Ben and Jerry's ice cream, it could be mashed potatoes, it could be anything.
Doritos,
And
it doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. And basically, they were, reinforcing calorie restriction and lower carbs, but giving you this set feeling that you were able to indulge. And I did that a couple times and had some success and then failed. And I think that had to do with, the keeping those foods around. And I also did paleo a few years ago, like a lower carb paleo. And that in 2012, 2013, I got down to 210 pounds. Wow. And I did great, but mentally did no work or anything along those lines. That's a whole nother, avenue to explore. But I regained 270 pounds in about 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, in 6 months, I was 480 pounds again. And that was, obviously kind of devastating mentally and a lot of challenges with that. But as much as I had resigned myself that I was going to live life as like that was my life and I had no choice, like was what I kept telling myself, I kept doing research and kept kind of looking at what were the current trends. And, always kept hearing whisperings of keto, but it wasn't big then. But it was just starting to come to prominence. In 2016, I believe it was, I found Jimmy Moore's book, Keto Clarity. And so I picked that up and I read through that and I was like, wow, this really sounds like something I could do. Like, this is something I think that would work for me. And so I kept doing some more research and I, still had one foot in the paleo primal sphere because I feel like I learned a lot about like ingredient quality and like the impact of different, things, different foods on my body. So I decided I had really, like I said, resigned myself to not doing anything. And it was coming into like December, January of 2017. And there were some changes happening in my family, some things specifically with my parents involving children, and realizing that not only for the first time did people need me alive, but I wanted to be alive. And I say a lot, and I actually said it the other day in a post on Instagram, and I got flagged as possibly being suicidal by Instagram, I think because of the language. Yeah, the algorithm can do some fun stuff. But I posted that I was killing myself with food because I really believe I was.
I saw that post.
Yeah, and I think I had a big, like, this moment where, like, I want to live. And some people might say, well, you wanted to live for other people. And that's not how I view it. I view it as realizing that, like, we have bigger purposes here on the planet. And for years, I just thought my purpose was to eat. And I think that was discounting myself as a person and discounting all of my experiences and what I have to give to people. And so I knew I needed to do something, and I needed to do something fast because I knew at that point I was showing symptoms of full-blown type 2 diabetes. My body was falling apart. My legs swelled. If I got a cut on my legs, it would leak clear fluid. I really walked in, like, if I walked out to my once a day and in. And right. I live on the second floor. And if I had to do that more than once, it wasn't happening. Like, I would not make plans because I didn't want to leave. Like, I would always make my plans so I could go right from work instead of having to go home again and go up and down the stairs. So I decided that I was just going to give keto a shot, and I was going to throw into it. And, how you can do, I think one of the big things people miss with keto is that at its core, keto is about lowering your carbohydrates, to get yourself into ketosis, and, increasing your fat and controlling your proteins, and all of those things can help with getting you into ketosis. But then there's a million different avenues you can take to do keto, like whether you want to do lazy keto or dirty keto or strict keto or whatever variation you want to do. And I started with like what would be considered quote unquote like lazy keto. I kept my net carb total under 25 grams, and my protein and fat I just ate until I was satiated. So I probably ate more in the beginning until that natural calorie restriction starts to happen when you cut carbs, which is the key mechanism of a keto diet is it makes you want less food. Like for me, like it affected my cravings, and I did that for almost a year and a half. and had fantastic success. In the middle of it all, I got really sick, went into the hospital with pneumonia, almost died.
Wow.
That was reinforced that I was doing the right thing, because I was down over 100 pounds already when that happened. And the doctors basically said that if you had been in the shape you were in 6 months ago, you would. So I stayed keto in the hospital, even though that was like incredibly challenging when you're dealing with hospital food. And their idea of a diabetic meal involved oatmeal, a blueberry muffin, and orange juice in the morning. So when I said at first, I said, well, just give me the low carb meal. And they brought that food, and I was like, this is not a low carb meal. I need to talk to someone. I need someone to explain to me how this is low carb. And it would have the carb counts, and it would be like 78 grams of carbs. I'm like, just because you tell me what the carbs are doesn't mean that this is low carb. Like, are you expecting me to take a bite of the muffin and put it down? Like, what do you? So anyway,
isn't it amazing how you're in the hospital and you're educating them on what's better for you?
And I totally was. I used to have nurses from different parts of the floor that I was on, because I was in there for 16 days. And they would all come in just to talk to me about what I was doing and how they could do it. And doctors would come in and mention, oh, I heard you're doing this and I heard you're doing that. That just cemented for me that I was doing the right thing, that I was on the right track. Last fall, I hit a stall for 2 months and actually started to regain a little bit of weight. Because I think at some point, especially for someone with food issues like me, the intuitive eating aspect of like a lazy keto approach can start to get out of hand, and you start to overeat on foods that still fit within your macros, your carb macro, but eating a full jar of almond butter and, going to town on keto cookies and, figuring out to make keto pancakes and desserts, that go well above what you should be eating happens for me. So I realized I needed help. I needed to get strict. And I knew that whenever I tried to get strict counting of like all the macros and everything on my own, I failed whenever I tried that. So I enlisted the help of a coach that I work with now, and I have been since October. Nice. And almost immediately my weight started moving again. I'm down about 40 pounds since I started working with him. And now I count total carbs, and I track my macros, and I track my calories, and we work with a very specific program that he kind of controls and tapers things down, and we do refeeds, and not carb refeeds, just protein and fat. It's going really well. Like I think I'm happy with where I'm headed. We both think that I'll hit my goal weight this year, which is 210 pounds, and then we'll see from there where I go. It's all about figuring out what that next step is and keeping goals alive and all that.
Yeah, well, first of all, as you're sitting here talking about, it's mentioned in the past, your purpose. You thought your purpose was to just kind of be on the planet and eat, and I'm sitting here and thinking about how many people you're going to inspire throughout your life now. And, you have a Patriots jersey on there, so we know all about the hard way that they win, right?
Oh, yeah.
So the Super Bowl 51 wasn't the win that we thought it would be in the beginning, but in the end, that was a huge inspiring win.
Oh, yeah.
And in a way, maybe you needed to go through what you went through in order to be able to really impact and change some lives, So that's just it's a really wild ride that you've been on, but you are, and I can tell that your mindset is somebody that just wants to win and do this for your. So congratulations, man. I think
Thank you.
I think it's fantastic. Just because this is questions I get a lot from folks, whether it's Facebook or Instagram or something like that, is, hey, what's your meal plan? How are you doing this? I can't have the bulletproof coffee. Can I have this? Can I have that? And I try to give them the best I can information, but I just try to say what I eat. I am strict, so I do what you do as far as I count my macros, and I use the app to do that. But what is it that, give me a day in the life of what your meals are looking like at the moment compared to what they look like in the past?
Sure. So right now we're in a kind of, my calories are down around 1,700. So it's not a huge amount. My maintenance calorie level is around 2,400. We figured that out with my coach.
Was that your macros number, right?
Yeah, that's my calories. That's total calories.
Okay.
Yeah. And the program I work with him through, which is Deeper State Keto, keeps you at 10 grams of total carbs a day. And so then we build my protein and fat with a ratio somewhere around 78 to 80% fat. Right now, I do a bulletproof coffee or a fatty coffee every day. and then I do one meal, because for me, just knowing myself as a person, I get more satisfied by having one full meal instead of two smaller meals or three smaller meals on top of that, because my hunger just stays alive. It stays alive when I eat like that, when I eat the smaller meals. So I do
But
one meal a day.
You're fasting a long time.
Yeah, so I fast anywhere between, it can be anywhere from like 18 to 20 hours a day,
Wow.
fasting. Yeah,
Wow.
22 some days. But that's something I was doing when I first started keto. Like intermittent fasting was something I also really dove right into. So I started like 16-8 right away, and then did 18-6, and I've done 24-hour fasts and 48-hour fasts and 72-hour fasts, and I did a 7-day. That's exciting.
I can't
exciting
even
and kind of terrifying. Yeah.
Does it trip you out that you can go? I mean, you went 7 days without eating food.
Yeah.
That's got to be a mind screw.
Oh yeah. And it really is about like, it's really a mental challenge. Like after like the first 24 hours, physically, hunger fades away. It really does.
Really?
And it comes back with a vengeance the last 24 hours, because you know food is coming.
So
and
it is a mind game.
Oh yeah. And I also knew coming out of that fast, like if you just jump right back into food, you can get yourself really sick. So you have to transition like out of fasting, and like that's a funny thing. But so right now, like to like I get around to what you're actually asking. Like today, I had my one meal a day today already, because after we talk, I'm heading out for the day. I had a coffee that had some keto collagen in it from Preferred Keto, their chocolate. It's delicious. I learned that from AD Keto on Instagram. Like he's a big proponent of it, and it's delicious. So I had a scoop of that with some Kerrygold butter in a coffee. And then I had with that kind of a scramble with about 5 eggs, 2 ounces of goat cheese, 7 ounces of kielbasa, and then 10 grams carbs total. Well, actually, it's more about 8 because of the carbs in the kielbasa, but about 8 grams of carbs total of green peppers and onion. It's a very small amount of onion. Onion adds up really fast. People don't think about that, but it does.
Good to know. I toss onion every day into my breakfast.
Oh yeah, and onion also. We could go down a rabbit hole with the science of onion. Like when you saute onion, you concentrate the sugars, so they become even more digestible by your body. Like it's so weird. I mean, it's exciting, but it's also like nerdy and geeky. You can geek when you geek out on onions. People start to stare at you a little bit, like, oh. Yeah. That's so good to know, I guess. But I'm going to just go over here now.
I'm into that phase, I have to say. I mean, I've read now a few books, and I also stumbled upon a website. It's on Reddit. It's a Keto FAQ, and I started to read into that. It was one of my first resources. So I think learning about the science of my body, knowing that my body is running fat rather than glucose. And I mean, just growing up in America, we're not taught these things, and unless you have that passion young, you just don't know it. Sorry to interrupt, but I related to you with that. Definitely, it was one of those things where it's just, this whole thing is a trip to know that you're running on the fat, your body's you're reducing the carbs, the sugar levels have leveled down, and your cravings are gone. It's an amazing thing. I can't 7 days without food is I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah, and I don't know if I'll ever do it again. It's not something I tell people to do. It's not something, when people hear I did it, they're like, oh, I want to do that. I'm like, I would not do that. Like,
why did you choose 7 days? Like, what was the reason for such a lengthy fast?
I think I wanted to do an extended fast. I had done some 72-hour fasts. I wanted to challenge myself. I think that's something that keeps me motivated, is having like goals and challenges. And so I was like, I'm going to see if I can do 7. And I know people now that have done 30 and are doing 30 right now. And I'm like, I just can't do that. Like, good luck to you. I've also started reading a lot more about the science of fasting and the health benefits. And after 72 hours, my understanding now of most of the science is that a lot of the increased benefits just stay at that level. You don't keep getting those ramped up benefits. So pushing yourself that far, I think then becomes more of like, you're someone who likes to run marathons, not really someone who's thinking I'm going to get this, all of these great benefits out of that experience. But yeah, it's like you're saying, it's fascinating what we can do with our bodies. Like I've become very kind of into, especially since I started working with my coach, I weigh daily now, which at first was a mental, like a mind game, like extreme mind game for me, because you see fluctuations all the time. But now I'm able to learn and I can pinpoint when a fluctuation happens, why it happens. And most times it's because of my electrolytes, whether I've taken not enough sodium or too much sodium, not enough potassium, too much potassium. My potassium and sodium ratio are off. Like I like them to be in like a 2-to-1 ratio, and that tends to keep me steady. If I go way off on that, like things get out of whack. If I don't have enough water, if I have too much water, if I don't sleep enough. Like I work a night job a couple nights a week, and when on those nights, I know my weigh-ins for the 2 days following are not going to be great because my sleep is cut so far back that I just know like that's the way my body responds to that. So what I really like about, and that's one of the things I really like about keto, is that there isn't a black and white manual you can pick up that just tells you what to do. You're forced to do some research and figure out for yourself what works, and treat yourself as the experiment in the middle of it all so that you can make those tweaks. And I think having that flexibility this time, whereas in the past when I wasn't flexible and I would hit a stall point or I'd start to regain weight or something along those lines, I would give up and say that the diet's not working. Whereas now I'm able to say, well, what are the pieces that aren't working, and what changes might I make to try to keep things moving? Or am I really even in a stall, or has it just been 7 days and that's not actually a stall? Like it can just be my body adjusting. Sure. And so now I can learn more, and I can figure out like, how do specific foods affect me, and how do I feel? Like, how does goat dairy affect me versus cow dairy? Like I think seeing it as that kind of experiment is also what helps keep me motivated and keep me going. Like I was always in school, I was always like a science kid. And I think it's almost now like I see like my macros app that I use is like a video game that I'm playing, because it's about figuring out the pieces of the puzzle for the next day so that they're going to hit those blocks, and like everything is going to light up properly, and do that again the next day, and do that for however many days are to come. And I think keto's given me that I can take that mental energy, because I clearly had a severe obsession with food when I was over 500 pounds.
Yeah.
I loved cooking food. I loved getting food from different places. I loved trying different foods. I loved eating the same foods over and over again. Like I had my seasonal foods and everything. And I think my problem in the past, I always just tried to shut that obsession off. And what I've been able to do now is channel that into some more positive things, like figuring out how different ingredients, hurt, help, or are neutral as affecting my body, and finding new ways to cook with the challenge of 10 total grams of carbs. Like total carbs versus net carbs is a big game changer for me, I think, in terms of my weight loss. But it's also very different than what you see a lot of people doing. And so a lot of like the fun and exciting keto products that people are using and posting about, I can't even touch them, because there's 25 grams of fiber and 20 grams of fiber, 17 grams of erythritol and 16 grams of fiber, and then 2 carbs. Like for me, it just doesn't work. And I think we're all going to eventually realize that counting net carbs is not something that's the smartest, or counting them just as zero, zeroing them out is not going to be the best. And we're going to realize that we should do different things at different percentages, different fibers, different sugar alcohols, which will make things more complicated for people, and people won't like that. But like I always say, like my favorite thing about keto is that it's simple. It's simple. It's not easy. It's not easy at all, but it's simple, because you know the numbers. The numbers are there in front of you. The food is there in front of you. Like and it's my hands that put that food in my mouth. Like that's what makes this process simple for me. Yeah. It doesn't make it always easy. It doesn't mean that there aren't challenges and pitfalls and everything. But at the end of the day, I can go back to, in my head, knowing what I need to be doing.
Right. I agree with you. I think it's simple, 46 days in, and I'm shocked at, I'm shocked, number one, that I can go only 2 meals a day. I'm shocked at the energy level I have from my morning coffee.
That's awesome.
It's one of those things where, for me, I was at 260. And, that was the heaviest I had been. And so I was at a point where, that was my enough point. And I thought I had no energy. I was sleeping longer. I didn't have the energy even to go to the gym. And I thought to myself, how am I going to lose this weight? And so for me, I feel like keto has definitely not only saved my life, but changed my life, changed the way I look at food. And clearly it's done it for you. I just feel like you have that willpower, and talking to you, I think a lot of people in the future, hopefully, will see more of you on podcasts, and we'll be able to get this information because you've been doing it for 2 years. That's a long time, and you've had great results. So, congrats, man! I think it's just unbelievable. I know we're running close to time. We may have about 6 minutes left.
Okay.
Before I know that you have to go, I wanted to touch on the 46 to 46.
Yep.
Because I know that's something that's big for you. So talk to me about that.
Definitely. So like I said, challenges are something that I thrive on, and I always look for different ones. And there's some challenges that some bigger influencers have put out recently that I was too late to the game for. And I realized, I was like, well, my birthday's coming up, and what am I doing to get ready for my birthday? And I looked at the things that have been kind of vexing me, and it's my consistency with my workouts and consistency with kind of my attitude. Like, I feel like one of the things that's happened for me losing all this weight is that my emotions have ramped up by 1,000. Like, it's very easy for me to get angry now. It's really easy for me to get upset now. Like, I don't have that tool that I used to use anymore. And so I just found myself for the past 2 weeks in this really negative place. Like, even people commenting things on my posts that they meant well, but I was taking them the wrong way. And I would get angry at posts, and I would write responses and then delete them, and write responses and delete them. And I was like, what are you doing? You need to think, you need to do something to work on your mindset right now. So I realized that this past Friday was 46 days to my 46th birthday. And so I put down I set up some rules that I would do 46 workouts of at least 46 minutes over the next 46 days. That's really the linchpin of the 46, where that comes through. That I'll read 10 pages a day of personal development material. I have a stack of probably about 75 books I want to read. And I've been procrastinating. So this is getting me to dive into things that I've been wanting to get into for a while. I write every day in my journal, and I share a non-scale victory, an NSV, every day on my Instagram account, a different one. And I'm going to do it every day for 46 days on my birthday. So
wow, man. Yeah. Awesome, dude. Yeah. That's very cool. One thing I wanted to do, so in order to maybe help push this and motivate it, and maybe have some other folks get involved.
Sure.
I'm willing to donate $100 to a charity of your liking. If this is completed in the fashion that you say. So if the 46 to 46, when it's all said and done, I'll Never Quit Nation will donate $100 to a charity of your choosing.
That's awesome.
And try to help push it. And I think just getting you out there in front of folks, I think you just inspire so many people. And if they can get to see what you're doing and how you're changing your life, you're gonna change. You're gonna change millions of lives, man. I believe that.
Thank you. I really, really appreciate that. I think that would be awesome. That's really cool.
You're an inspiring person. I know we're running out of time, so I just want to thank you for being on here.
Definitely.
A fellow New Englander. Fellow Patriots fan, go Pats.
For sure.
I'm already going to ask you right now that I definitely want you to come back on.
Definitely.
In fact, you can come on as many times as you want. I probably could talk to you for over an hour. I've got so many questions.
That'd be awesome. Definitely.
So thank you for coming on, and I look forward to having you back. And good luck with everything. And definitely. I know that you're gonna hit that weight this year. So
thank you.
Congrats, and we'll promote 46 to 46. And anyone that's watching right now, just follow Mike on Instagram. It's at Gormy Goes Keto, correct?
Yep. Gormy _goes_keto. Gormy Goes Keto. Yep.
So watch him, everybody. He's fantastic. He's motivating, and give him a follow.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much, man. I really appreciate having me on today. I hope we'll talk again soon. Definitely.
It's my pleasure, man. It's my pleasure.
Great. Awesome.